And welcome back to Skating Penguin Network, everyone. It is Robbie here again from a very, very cold Western Pennsylvania, trying to stay warm as much as possible. We have a kind of a two-parter here tonight. We have a recap of the Penguins game in Los Angeles against the Kings, and then we have six mailbag questions to get to as well. We will have two mailbags this week. We'll do part tonight, part later in the week, but before we jump into the game or the mailbag, as always, Snail joins me out in Seattle. Snail, I'm assuming you stayed up for the entirety of the game on Monday night against the Kings, but the Penguins, I caught about the first 30 minutes of the game.
Mhm.
I woke up this morning and saw a nice 5-1 victory there for the Penguins. And maybe if they just play the Kings 82 games a year, the Penguins would be the best team in hockey. But from what I read, and I did watch the highlights on YouTube, a very good performance from the Penguins in a against a team that one they struggle to play against, and in a building where the Kings have been really, really good this year.
Yeah, Robbie, if they played the Kings 82 times a year, I also just think if the Penguins were in the West, they'd be a great team. I feel like they play West teams pretty well. Also, I don't know if you've noticed it, but in some of these, and this is going to sound like a downer kind of point, but I feel like they've been getting the backup goalie a lot. Like when they've played like Tampa, the Kings. I know that they had Kemper the first time, but the Penguins right now are a team that if you're a playoff team, you might be getting the backup when you're playing when Pittsburgh plays them. So um, either way, they get the wins when they need to. They played a tremendous game. Oddly enough, I thought that it would be reversed because they honored the LA Fire Department before the game. They had a big ceremony. It
Yeah.
was a 7:30 start time. It didn't even start till probably 7:45 because of the ceremony they had. So even later for you guys out east. But I thought the Kings would come out firing on all cylinders because whenever a team honors someone like that, whether it's 1,000 game, the 1,000 game stick ceremony or some sort of tragedy that they talk about and acknowledge, or whatever, that home team typically comes out just on fire. But the Penguins got on the board quickly and they came out firing. I thought the team was kind of like the Edmonton game. It was just details dialed in. It was tenacity, the depth players contributing, the star players on this roster were performing like such. The goaltending was outstanding. I think I texted you at one point, and I was like, y'all Blomqvist might have to be a little patient getting a start here because Ned
Yeah.
looks incredible, and it was almost like hindsight 2020 after Ned had that incredible game and that performance he had. Yeah, I know it was back to backs. Of course, you're going to get Blommer some looks early and often, but it's almost like, do you just ride Ned again? When he gets hot, he seems to be really hot. So those were kind of my initial thoughts on it. I'm sure you'll break down the scoring here in a moment, but I watched the whole game and man, what a performance! It had me feeling very optimistic afterwards. I mean, this team can show just flashes of brilliance every once in a while when they play together as a whole team, and that depth um, contributes, and the stars are playing like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm feeling pretty optimistic. This road trip, lots of points available, and the Kings
Mm-hmm.
might be one of the best teams that they're playing. So if they can continue to whatever's galvanized them, if they can continue this run out west, then they could be coming home looking like they're in quite a bit higher in the standings. But before we get to that, don't want to put the cart before the horse. But yeah, great game to watch. Unfortunately for you guys, it was a bit late. I'm sure some of you, I mean, you guys got work early. Probably can't stay up and what time would it have ended out there? Would that have been like because it's already 10? Would it be like a 1 a.m.?
Is that what time it ended in Seattle?
I believe it was
So
almost 10
yeah,
o'clock.
it'd have been
Almost.
about
It was
1 o'clock in there. One. Yeah, I mean 10. If it's 10 out in Seattle, it's 1 o'clock here in Pittsburgh. So yeah, I mean it would have been around 1 o'clock um, in the morning. So yeah, right in that ballpark.
Yeah, wild. I mean, if I lived out east, I'd probably be the lunatic that stays up to watch him just because that's kind of how I tick. But yeah, probably nice to wake up and check the score sheet this morning and see that outcome.
Yeah, it certainly was, and like you said, this is the last game the Penguins will play on this road trip against a team in a playoff position. So, um, fingers crossed they can keep stacking points. The Ducks are up next, but again, nothing's been easy for the Penguins this year. Seattle and Utah are in this schedule, and both of those teams have embarrassed the Penguins at home this year. So, fingers crossed they can find a way to overcome it, get some more wins on this road trip. The benefit is this long road trip, you have no back to back games. So you won't have to travel from one city to the next on um, little to no sleep and get up and play a game. You have days off to travel, which makes it much more convenient when you're on the road like this. But the Penguins just kind of went out and did their thing last night. Kevin Hayes gets a power play goal, a beautiful power move. Sidney Crosby gets a goal and an assist in this one. Evgeny Malkin's back in the goal column. Phil Tomasino, I think the pass he made on the Malkin goal was just the kind of pass the Penguins, a guy like that needs to make, and he put it right on the stick of Malkin. Malkin buries it past David Riddick. Um, Tomasino has been just exactly what the Penguins needed. It's hard. Again, it was a, a just a trade looking to give someone a different look, a different surrounding, and Tomasino's taken advantage of everything he's gotten in Pittsburgh. He's been fantastic. Very rarely do we talk about him having a bad game. If we have at all, he was injured for a little bit, but he's just a player, and I think he's going to be in Pittsburgh for a long time now. I think he is kind of working his way into what Kyle Dubas has planned for the future. I think he's an important part of this team, and I think he's going to um, remain a part of this team for a very long time. I can't say anything bad about that trade. Cody Glass has played two really good games in a row now. He scored again, and then Anthony Beauvillier scored as well. So the Penguins, yeah, they got scoring from the top six, the bottom six on the power play. Uh, don't undersell what Nedeljkovic did in this game. There's a couple that could have easily gotten LA back in this contest that he absolutely stole from them. A great game from Ned. Yeah, he's been great since kind of the Jari demotion, obviously. His goal, his assist, a good game in Buffalo, and probably an even better game in LA. And yeah, you just kind of got to buckle down and keep it rolling now. This is a hockey team that has an opportunity in front of them these next 4 games of this road trip to stack some points. And it's something you absolutely need, especially still with a team that you're holding, or you are still uh, at a disadvantage in terms of games played. And then afterwards, we talked about these next 4 road games, and not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but their first game home is against the Nashville Predators, a team that's struggling as well. So, I mean, the points are going to be out there for the Penguins. If they play like they did against LA both times, they have an opportunity to get a lot of points out of this road trip. So, uh, yeah, hope they just keep it rolling because, again, you need every point you can get when you're in the position the Penguins are in.
Yeah, totally. And I wanted to, like, you were talking about Tomasino, and Tomasino, he's only 23 years old. He doesn't turn
Yeah.
24 until the middle of summer,
Mm-hmm.
and it's insane to me that Nashville gave up on him so young, because he has one thing that you can't really teach, and that is like creativity with the puck. He's a Canadian kid. You got to think that he spent enough time playing like road hockey, backyard hockey, something where he was just experimenting and creative, because the way he handles the puck, he's got the stuff that you can't really teach that well. And when you have a player that has high hockey IQ plus creativity, you can teach them the basic stuff. You can have coaches get through to players like that. And when you get a guy who's only 23 years old and he's got a ceiling that we kind of think that, at times we look and we say, this kid could be really great. Like he could be, I don't want to say a superstar. I'm not, that's not what I'm saying, but a solid contributor in the NHL, right shot winger. I mean, those don't necessarily grow on trees. And I think that it's worth the Penguins giving him uh, that patience and time. I think, I don't know. I don't remember if he was a first round pick or not. I wouldn't be shocked if he was. And Cody Glass, you were talking on him too. I was watching that game and he's been stringing together some really good performances lately. Cody Glass is giving me like Brandon Sutter vibes. I don't know if you see that ever at all, but you remember Brandon
Yeah,
Sutter in
yeah,
Pittsburgh.
yeah.
Just a pretty good offensive. You know, he I don't know what his ceiling is. He's on the fourth line sometimes. He's on the third line. He's still really young. His ceiling might be higher than Brandon Sutter's ever was,
Yeah.
but he's kind of giving me Brandon Sutter-ish vibes, and I'm not mad at that. I don't think as a Penguins fan you could be mad at that with a very young, maybe Brandon Sutter plus type player. I mean, pretty solid deals for Dubas. But hey, apparently, according to that article that came out, which we'll touch on later in the mailbag, Tomasino is apparently one of those players on the trade block, along with apparently Ricard Raquel,
No,
Chris
he's
Letang.
apparently guys that cannot be touched on the
Oh,
trade block.
Tomasino was on the list that can't be touched.
Yeah, him and Pickering were two of the ones that can't be touched.
Oh, okay, well, Cody Glass is apparently touchable, so along with Letang and Carlson and pretty
Yeah.
much the entire roster. Dude, Kevin Hayes had a game that game too, and I've been saying it. You know, I was on the Ricard Raquel train early this season with the over on 30 goals. I've been saying it too. Get Kevin Hayes more ice time. Fourth line winger, 9-game scratch. Kevin Hayes putting on the moves last night. You know, that looks like second line center, first unit power play. Kevin Hayes, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So good on him to be stringing together these good games. You can tell Kevin Hayes cares and he doesn't want to be watching from the press box again. So whatever, that's, I don't think he did anything necessarily super wrong. Like, you know, I think he probably, with the depth that this team has, he probably missed he was out of the lineup for a little bit, had a lingering injury, and there's so many other players that can fill in those roster spots. He just didn't see it again, but he's taken this opportunity and he looks amazing. So yeah, great performance by the fellas last night in LA.
Yeah.
You got to
Awesome.
think also, I was talking last night too. You're in cold Pittsburgh, you're out east, and I'm sure like going to LA and being in that warm weather in the middle
Oh, it
of the
has to.
season
Yeah.
like this, you got to think that it's got to be good. Like it feels good for these guys. They maybe have a little juice, a little more pep in
Yeah.
their step,
I mean,
waking up and it's 75.
I can't imagine. There's definitely not been a better time to escape Pennsylvania than what it is right now. So, looking at that weather forecast while they're out there on the beach, I know when they usually go out west, they do have a day off, and they're out there doing California things, chilling at the beach, doing other stuff. So, I'm sure being able to wear some shorts and a t-shirt and some flip flops around is a lot better than what we have right now. So yeah, I definitely, you get off that plane after playing in Washington on Saturday night, you land in LA and you get off that plane and it's just that nice, cool or like warmish winter California air. I'm sure it felt fantastic for those players, and they probably got the blood flowing a little bit. They get a little day to recover out there on Sunday, and then Monday they go out and speed bag a good LA Kings team that had its chances, but Ned was there, and the Penguins scored up and down the roster, and yeah, I'm sure it felt good. I'm sure that gets the juices flowing to get out there, get some warm weather, and hopefully they took advantage of their day off today, got some beach time, some relaxing time, and kept enjoying the nice warm weather because. I mean, if I was out there, that's what I'd be doing. So,
Oh, I'm sure. And Malkin was dancing, and Sid even commented it after the game that he loves playing in LA. He loves it when they come there. You know, Gino's just like shopping and eating sushi and
yeah,
that good
Gino has the he
Pacific
has
Ocean
the
fish.
he has the Miami house for the off season, so you know he loves the warm weather, which is incredible because he grew. I guess when you grow up in Russia, you probably just want to live in the warmest place you can, if you can afford it after um, when you're older. So yeah, I'm sure that Malkin. I mean, having that Florida house definitely probably helps him appreciate being out in LA, and these guys that all grew up in Canada or your northern U.S. states are probably like just Yeah, anything to get a little warm.
Just the icy winters of Magnitogorsk, Russia, I'm
Yeah,
sure is
yeah.
nothing compared to, mid-January in Los Angeles, Venice Beach area. So good on the fellows. You can tell that it maybe affected them in a positive way.
Yep.
And God, yes, speed bagged them. It really felt like they had control of this entire game. The scoring summary, I don't know, Robbie, you want to read it off? You got it in front of you,
Yeah,
or
I'll read it off
I?
real quick here.
All right, yeah.
No, go ahead. I have to bring it up
Okay.
again. If you have it, yeah, just run
So
it.
yeah, 10 minutes into the game, we got Kevin Hayes with his 8th goal of the year, and it was unassisted. He put on a great little shimmy shake move down near the net, hands in tight, right around the goalie. I think actually their defenseman, it might have been Joel Edmondson, knocked the puck in, but he had a pretty good line to the net anyways. So he gets his, like I said, 8th of the year, and then Matt Grizzlick fires a point from Matt Grizzlick fires a shot from the point, and Sidney Crosby actually gets a stick on it, so he gets his 13th of the year. Anthony Beauvillier also gets on the score sheet with an assist, and then the man himself, Evgeny Malkin, that we were just talking about, he gets his 9th of the year. Great move in front of the net as well. Slips it by big save Dave Riddick, Philip Tomasino, and Marcus Pedersen assist on that as well. And then Adrian Kempe, who's just, I don't know if he's slept on enough to be called like an underrated player, but Adrian Kempe is like, I've always kind of said he's kind of like the Swedish Kucherov. Like Kucherov is, I mean, it's hard to compare anybody to Kucherov because of how good he is, but Adrian Kempe kind of plays the same way that he's plays right wing on his off wing. He's a left shot, and he's a sniper, and the Kings were peppering at this point in the game, and Adrian Kempe gets a power play goal, his 23rd of the year, assisted by Anze Kopitar, who's still doing it, and Jordan Spence, a nice little right shot demon that the Kings have had for a little while now. And then at the end of the second period, Cody Glass gets on the board, right in front of the net, goes to the net. He gets only his 3rd of the year. I've heard his name so much, you'd think that he had more than that, but good on him, assisted by Kevin Hayes and rookie Owen Pickering. And then in the third period, there's only Anthony Beauvillier gets on the score sheet with his 11th of the year, playing on Sidney Crosby's wing with Raquel out. Raquel, I don't believe, traveled with the team, and we could touch on that in a minute. But Beauvillier gets his 11th, assisted by Sid, who's up to 38 assists on the year, and Chris Letang factors in as well with his 11th. So the fellas just really poured it on. They got on the score sheet every period, and yeah, with the way the lines were constructed, I felt like it was like they didn't miss a beat. They actually played a hell of a lot better than they did in DC.
Yeah, absolutely played better in DC. Again, they were coming off a game the night before, but no, they got to it early and often in this one, and just kind of took to the Kings. Yeah, the only goal they gave up was a 5-on-3 bomb from Adrian Kempe. But other than that, yeah, good hockey game for the Penguins. Rickard Raquel did travel with the team,
Oh, he
but
did travel.
he returned to Pittsburgh for a family issue. That is all the Penguins said. So hopefully nothing serious. It was just a precaution, but no word if he will be with the team when they return to his old stomping grounds on Thursday night in Anaheim. So I hope all the best for Rickard Raquel there. But yeah, Penguins 5-1 winners in LA, off Tuesday and Wednesday, and then back in action on Thursday against the Ducks. Another late start for the fans of Pittsburgh. That's a 10 o'clock puck drop. So we'll do a recap some point after that. And then Saturday, the Penguins are in Seattle to take on the Kraken.
Also have to mention a significantly lighter load of shots this game. He made, I believe, Nedeljkovic made 25 saves on 26 shots compared to his 40 saves on 42 his last outing. So yeah, not as much rubber faced, but still he gets the dub. And yeah, the post Jari era, the Penguins are now 2-1. So just a little mental note there for you. Jari's on a roll, or not Jari. Ned is on a roll since Jari has vacated the crease indefinitely.
Absolutely.
Well, Robbie, should we hop over to the mailbag and answer some questions?
Let's do that.
All right, I'll kick it off here, and this first one's going to be for you, and this comes from our pal Ed Helsinki. Still really would like to know if your last name is Helsinki or if you're from Helsinki and that's just your nickname. But he asks you, Robbie, at this point of the season, what letter grade would you give the Penguins for their efforts and results, and could you give us a why?
Yeah, gonna give them a middle of the road C grade. I, why? Because one, it's bad. And again, if they would have kept playing like they did in October and November, we'd be talking like a D. I think that their play since Thanksgiving has absolutely elevated their grade. Had to knock a couple points off because that homestand wasn't good. And then just if you're looking at the whole of everything, I think they are a C is mid, and the Penguins are mid. That is the best way to describe it.
Oh, yeah. They can be painfully mid and exceptionally mid in the same
Yeah,
week.
or they can be very good like they were in LA, or very bad like they were against Dallas. I mean, there's like they're all over the spectrum. It's like me trying to throw darts at a dartboard. They're going to land everywhere. Probably most of the time they're going to land in the wall. But no, they're in the mix. Who knows what's going to happen? They could sweep this road trip, and all of a sudden you're back in a playoff position. I don't know. You just don't know what's coming with this team night
And
in and
then
night
lose
out.
7-1 to Nashville.
Yeah, and they get absolutely crushed by the Predators. You don't know what you're getting with this team at any given point, and they are an average hockey team, and a C is an average grade. I I see stuff I like, I see stuff I don't like. I'm seeing more that I like than I did at the beginning of the season. Let's just keep running with that momentum as we go along here. It'd be really nice to head into the Four Nations um, with a good bit of momentum and some wins stacked here. But as of right now, I think they are about meeting expectations. I don't. I think again, we all predicted before the season they're going to be in that bubble conversation. None of us had them making it, but in that conversation, that's where they're at now. If they make the playoffs, I think if they make the playoffs, I have to give them a better letter grade. But if they're in this position here, they're a C. They're satisfactory. They're fine. They're mid. They're middle of the road. So I'm going with C. I just think that's the fairest grade to give them if you're taking all the 47, 48, 49 games they played so far this season.
I see no qualms with that. That's probably right about where I think I don't think you're too hard of a teacher on them for giving them that grade.
All right. We're going with Brian for this one over to Snail. And Brian said he briefly spoke to Snail about the recent goalie moves, i.e., Tristan Jarry. But I'm firmly on board. I'm firmly on the side. If this happened a month sooner, meaning they cut bait with Jarry, we'd be in a playoff spot comfortably. How do you feel about that, Snail?
Yeah. So Brian, we had texted about this, and he did like to it a little shot at me that I'm still horrible at texting. I will own that. It's nothing personal, Brian. It's just how I kind of am. You should see on my phone when I open up my lock screen. It's like I have 111 text messages. I have 35 missed calls, and I have 82,367 unread emails. So that's just kind of the way I operate. But man, yeah, back to the question, like, yeah, we talked about this a little bit, and I mean, I've been hard at Jari on times. I will even go on the record and say back when Dubas first got here, Robbie, I was on with you and Garrett at the time. I said, why did you have to sign Jari? I mean, I was on the train for Gibson. I said to bring Gibson in, which that's a whole nother can of worms. I can say now that, geez, you just don't know what you would have gotten in Gibson, and from the way he's been playing it on a bad Anaheim team, you don't know if he would have been much better than Jari. But I was on board saying you don't need to sign Jari. And then Robbie, a couple weeks ago, I think you and I were kind of riffing, and we talked about God with where the Penguins were looking to be at with being a mid team, kind of retooling on the fly. Go sign a Cam Talbot and a Calvin Pickard for $1.5 million each, and just have a mid goaltending tandem that you can, just trade one at the deadline for a backup and keep one, or what I mean. You don't need to put all your eggs in the basket of a goaltender if you're going to be kind of going through a transition. So, with that said, I will double down and say, yeah, I think that, um, God, I would like to be a fly on the wall in Dubas's office to know if there was ever any sort of offer in the offseason to trade for Jari, and he just maybe didn't get uh, a deal that he necessarily liked. But Jari's stock has tanked and tanked and tanked game by game by game. And then even when he came back, or when he did come back from his stint in the minors down in Wilkes-Barre, I will say that he played pretty solid and never was fully convinced he was fully back, but you'll take the wins when you could get him. He was still letting in 3 goals a game, 3-4 goals a game, even at times. He wasn't a brick wall by any means. So, when you have the goaltending depth that you've had in the minors with Murashov playing, just dominating the ECHL, clearly, playing at a level that doesn't deserve to be marinating down that far in their farm system. I think that Philip Larson has kind of been. I don't think that the Penguins were expecting him to be as good as he's been down in the AHL. I think he was kind of an unproven piece, former Detroit draft pick, and he's been, arguably one of the better goaltenders in their system at times. And then you have Yoel Blomqvist, who kind of got thrown to the Wolves a little bit early, and I thought he didn't look out of place by any means. So they've been able to, I think that if they took this stance that they had with Jari in, you need to go to the minor leagues, get your game back, but you're not coming back up anytime soon. You'll earn your way back up, just like these other prospects that you'll be competing with the prospects for a starting or for a chance to get back with the club. Had they done that, giving Ned more room to work or just giving Yoel Blomqvist a little bit more of a leash, I think that they would, if they're not in a playoff spot, I think that their record would be better. I can pretty confidently say that. Robbie, you want to chime in on this at all? You got any thoughts?
No, I think that's fair to say they'd be in a better position. Not saying comfortable. I don't know what we would define as comfortably in a playoff position.
Well, with the
But
race, there's no comfort in the wild card in the East.
Yeah, I think maybe they are sitting in a playoff spot right now. You have to think that maybe a different goalie gives them an extra 2 or 3 wins, 4 wins maybe. So yeah, I think they're definitely a better team, or at least their record's better. But yeah, I think that's completely plausible explanation for where the Penguins would be if they would have cut bait with Jari sooner than they did.
Yeah, I mean, how many times did Robbie, even you, who I feel like you're a Pittsburgh native, you're a sports fan out there. I feel like maybe you have you're a little bit more mild tempered than a guy like me. Maybe but still more passionate than Garrett was about the Penguins team. Even you've come on here, and the first thing you kick off the podcast with is, "I think I'm done with this goaltending tandem." Like, I think I'm done with. I know, not just goaltending tandem. You're done with Jari, and for me to hear that from you at times, I've been like, okay, I've been done with him forever. If Robbie's done, that's a good kind of like meter of like, okay, this is like, break in case of emergency type situation.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think we're both on board that, like you said, a different goaltender, maybe a couple more wins results in a little bit of a higher place in the standings that you're jockeying for that wild card spot. All right, let's go and move on here from a question from Brian for you, Robbie. And he says, who would have done better, Sid in Mario's time or Mario in Sid's era? And he says that, I think given Sid's skill set and ability of goalies during that time, he'd have even more insane numbers. Where are you at with it?
No, it would be It would be Mario in Sid's time, because they actually call penalties in
bingo
in today's NHL. Again, we complain about the officiating now, a la Connor Garland on Connor McDavid, but if you watch highlights from Mario's time, they literally played all the time like Connor Garland tried to defend Connor McDavid this weekend, and nobody batted an eye.
That's an average shift.
That's an average shift. Like, they were literally tackling these guys. What Gretzky, again, and Gretzky and Lemieux did have the benefit of goaltending that was not nearly as good as it is today. But you put Mario and that skill ability around in today's NHL, that size, those hands, that speed, and the ability to play much more freely, he would have put up just. It would have been like the Harlem Globetrotters putting up against like the Washington Generals. It would have been just it's absurd what he would have put up. I wish there was a way that they could like AI it together to make it like to see it happen because just again the goaltending is absolutely better, but having that kind of talent, being able to skate freely up and down the ice, uh, and the way they call penalties now and the way the power plays are, Mario would have put up um, gargantuan numbers more than he did playing in the era that he played in. Again, Crosby against those goalies, okay, but Crosby
But
is not
he's
the
too
size.
small.
Yeah, he's not the size. Again, Gretzky wasn't big, but Gretzky also had like two Hall of Famers on his wing all the time. Mario would have put up video game numbers. He would have been like putting the settings on rookie and just skating out there as much as possible. I think
I
it
mean, look
actually
at
would have.
Tage Thompson and Austin Matthews, similar type
Yeah,
builds, but
yeah,
still smaller than Mario, and they
yeah,
can put up ungodly numbers. I mean,
yeah. I
Mario
mean,
had probably more skill than both of those
yeah.
guys.
I think Tage scored 50 in a year at one point. Austin Matthews almost scored 70 last season. Ovechkin, uh, yeah, he would put up just bonkers numbers in today's game with the way it's officiated and the way it's played. It would have fit his skill set so much better. And you wonder, like, not playing that physical style, if it would have been easier on his body in the long run as well. Crosby, I think, would have been absolutely. He would have been still one of the greatest ever in Mario's era. But you're putting Mario's just combination of everything on the ice in today's NHL, the way the game's played, would have been almost unfair. It'd been like a cheat code on the
For
ice.
sure. And think about that. Remember that series that with Sid against the Flyers, or remember the way they played Sid, knocking out his
Yeah.
teeth and stuff.
Oh yeah.
That's every game, not just
Yeah.
that's not just
Yeah.
like a heightened playoff series. That's every game in the NHL at one point. I just feel like, yeah, I agree with you. Mario would have fared better probably nowadays than Sid back then.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Moving on here. Andreas Castle joins the show here. This is kind of he has he lives over in Europe, so he gets the Penguin games at a completely different time. He said that just a quick shout out to the Night Owl Club. Uh, Listening to Pens in LA on my way to work. Always a pleasure to listen to Joe Brand and the old 2-9er Phil Bork. So while I was sleeping, Snail, it's later for you for the Penguins. Andreas was getting ready and going to work while listening to the Penguins in LA. So
That's
um,
wild.
yeah, I mean, I guess time zones. That's how they work, and I guess it'd be a nice treat getting that on the commute to work, being able to listen to some hockey.
Yeah, catching it live, nothing better than that. I'm sure watching replays and catching up on the score sheet and everything the day after is great and all. You get your content, but catching a game live on the way to work, I mean, that's not even the Night Owl Club. That's the Breakfast Club.
That is the Breakfast Club. That is the Breakfast Club. That is your early morning coffee. You're one of the people down, one of the old people down at McDonald's at 6:30 in the morning, getting their Joe and pulling up the Penguins on their phone. Yeah, that's.
Oh yeah, a little Penguins game with your cup of coffee in the morning, about to clock in for a shift at work. Why not? Sounds great. I mean,
Why not?
that never
Great way
that
to start
has
the day.
have they ever played early like that? Actually, they have. Yeah, I guess there've been Saturdays. I guess I've woken up and it's maybe like 9 a.m. here and they're already playing. Like, but
Yeah, if
that
they play
rarely
one of those
happens.
if they play one of those uh
Matinee.
noon noon games on a Saturday or Sunday, that would be 9 a.m. for you. Trying to like I guess like a 3 o'clock game would be noon for you. 6 o'clock out there. I'm sure out there they're like a 7 o'clock game in Pittsburgh would be like 1 o'clock out in Germany or England or where some of our
Yeah, geez,
listeners are. Yeah, that
no
would be
idea of the time zones. I'm super ignorant to
that would
that stuff.
be
So
tough. Now, how much does it change your night going from a 4 o'clock start to a 7:30 start?
Oh, quite a bit. It's really weird. I hate waiting that long to watch the games because,
Yeah, usually you
like,
get off work and you can go watch the game, and now you have to like get off work and find something to do for three or so hours.
yeah, like sometimes at work I'll plug in for the first, maybe sometimes like half the first period I'll like put in the headphones and listen to it while I'm maybe even still working or something. I've definitely been in that scenario before, but 7:30 I'm just like, god damn, it's like, it's 6:15 and I'm like, I still got an hour and 15 minutes till this thing kicks off. So
Huh.
yeah, it is different, but I kind of like it. I kind of like watching the Penguins and then just being like, all right, it's time to start winding down for bed. But I don't want to get used to that. I like my 4 o'clock starts, and then I like getting the Penguins game almost out of the way first, and then I have the rest of the evening to watch, whatever teams are playing. But yeah, it definitely changes the schedule a little bit.
Yep, absolutely.
Alrighty, let's see here. This is another question coming at you from Brian, and he says here, what did you think of the 2 quarter-century teams that were announced? If they played 5-on-5, who would win?
I'm gonna have to take the first team because the first team had 3 Hall of Famers on it in the first line, and then Chris Letang and Sergei Gonchar, who Gonchar should already be in the Hall of Fame,
He should.
and Letang is, I think, going to get there. But then you have Malkin, Crosby, and Mario on the first line, and the goaltender is a Hall of Famer, Fleury. So yeah, it's the first team. As much as guys like Gensel and Gensel, Kessel, and I can't remember the third forward.
Well, wasn't the
Eh,
second team Mario, Kessel, and Gensel? Because I remember we talked about, I don't have them pulled up, but I swear
yeah,
when we pulled it up, they included Mario for the second team, even though he'd only had kind of a cup of coffee during that.
yeah, that might have been what it was. But the defensemen on that second team were Brooks Orpik and Brian Dumoulin, who in their careers may have combined for like 10 goals
Yeah.
altogether. So I'm going to take my chances with Gonchar Letang over those two guys, and then the Hall of Fame goalie. So I'm going to go team one, just because if you add all their career statistics together, they'd
Mhm.
be absolutely comical. But yeah, um, maybe it was Gensel on the first line. It might have been. Which, I mean, again, a guy that scored 40 goals twice with Sidney Crosby. So can't complain
Cannot
too much
complain.
there. Yeah, so I'm gonna go the first team just because it's basically just loaded with just insane offensive talent. In a 3-on-3 tournament, they would probably, they would dominate.
You know what? I think I gotta just pull it up quick here, just so we're accurate, because I think I might take a contrarian stance. Um, because man, Mario Lemieux and Phil Kessel on a
I
line—that's just
mean,
like
that
my
is,
wet dream.
yeah. I mean, Mario Feed and Kessel would be uh, uh, pretty entertaining to watch for sure. I can definitely guarantee that.
All right, let's see here. Pick Penguins quarter century team. So okay, God, stupid accept cookies. The first team is Evgeny Malkin. You were right. It's the team you talked about. Letang, Gonchar, Malkin, Gensel, Crosby, and Fleury in net. And then the second team was, yeah, I'm taking second team. I'm taking Mario Lemieux, Chris Kunitz, Phil Kessel,
Kunitz. I couldn't remember who
Doom
the other guy was.
Dumo, Orpix, and then Matt Murray in net. So um yeah, I don't know. I think that I might just to take a contrarian stance. I might go with team two.
All right, that's fair. I mean, it's an opinion. All right, wrapping up this section of the mailbag, and this is the one that we're gonna talk a little bit about because Brian asked, "What do you think of the news that Dubas is willing to fire Sale? Not only pending free agents but big name veterans. Report is he's willing to retain on the Carlson uh, contract."
Okay, so I read this last night, and then this morning I listened to a couple hockey podcasts who I won't name, and they were talking about it too. And I did not think it would get this much traction. When I see a report from a site called Yardbarker or something like that,
Yeah,
And the source is an unnamed source who is close to the team, and it's not coming from Josh Yohe, and it's not coming from Elliot Friedman or Darren Dreger or Chris Johnston or Pierre, whatever his name is.
LeBron.
If Pierre LeBrun, if it's not coming from who's the female Penguins reporter?
Macrecchiolo.
Michelle Crecchiolo. If it's not coming from her, I mean, you can't really bite on that bait. Now, I just I don't put a lot of stock in it, but like to entertain it, I mean, dude, Dubas moved heaven and earth to get Carlson in a Pittsburgh sweater. I know Carlson was actually recently asked too about um, I forget exactly what the context was, but he was saying he's in this locker room and he's looking around at some guys that have 2, maybe 3 Stanley Cups, and he has none. And for him, it's always he wants to get a Stanley Cup. I'm sure Dubas sold him on the idea of they're going for another Stanley Cup while Sid is still playing at a high level and with the Pens. So God, to touch on the Carlson thing, it's dicey because you could argue that a guy like Carlson might ask to move to a contender because he doesn't have that. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer already with the Norrises and the play and just his resume. But God, a Stanley Cup for a guy like Erik Karlsson would really cement his legacy, and you know that he's hungry for one. Although sometimes it doesn't really necessarily look like he's playing like it. He can be a little lackadaisical, and I'm sure when you've got 100 balloons in the bank, and then the Norrises, maybe at nights you do take off. But that aside, he moved heaven and earth, like I said, to get a guy like Karlsson. I don't think he's looking to retain salary on the guy so that he can move off of him. And this might be a hot take too, Robbie, but this is how I truly feel. I think if they're moving one of Karlsson or Letang, they both kind of do the same job. I think they'd probably move off Letang first. And I know you hate to hear that, but I think that they'd probably move off a guy like Letang first before Karlsson at this point. I don't put a lot of stock in this. I'm sure that obviously we don't know, but I'm sure the situation remains the same. The Penguins are probably listening. Kyle Dubas is listening on offers for players, especially maybe veteran players, because he's still looking to get younger. He's looking to get faster. He's looking to retool on the fly. He's looking for roster-ready players or promising young prospects that are ready for the NHL. And if that meant moving a player that's still got term left on his deal, like a Rickard Rakell who's lighting it up, I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. I think you need a guy like Rakell. If you're thinking about playoffs, you need him to get to that point. I think Bunting, funny enough, we talked about this last time we recorded. I think Bunting is a part of the future of the Penguins. I think he plays a necessary role on this team. And you agreed with that, Robbie. So,
absolutely.
I just don't know. I'm sure a team, if they really wanted a guy like Kevin Hayes with his contract, I think he's making just above $3 million. Centerman who's got hands and can score and whatever, big body. I'm sure a team, if they came with the right offer for a guy like Kevin Hayes, they'd move off of him. I'm sure if they came with the right offer, they'd move off of a Chris Letang or a Karlsson, especially if you didn't have to retain money on him. I think if they came to you for a guy like Rickard Rakell for the right price, I mean, everyone's got a price, I assume, if you're a general manager, but it's steep. It's going to be a steep one, and it's going to probably be quite a handful coming back to you. So I don't know. I think Dubas is in the market of winning and wanting to make this team better. So with that mindset, there's not a lot of players that aren't a hard no, but you got to come with an offer that makes it worthwhile. And I think that remains Dubas's vision with the current roster. I think he still wants to win. I still think that the playoffs aren't out of the question yet for this team. And if it doesn't help this team get to that point, then I don't think it's really an offer worth entertaining. There's something Kyle Dubas is listening to. And you look at last year, they trade Gensel, and it seems like a step backwards, but then the Penguins go on a run. It's almost like addition by subtraction. Wouldn't be shocked if we saw a similar move this year. Don't know who that would be. Don't want to speculate too much. Got some players that aren't quite pulling their weight like you'd hoped, and then you got some players that are lighting it up that you kind of hope that they stick around. But that's kind of where I'm at with it. Robbie, where's your head at with Brian's question, and not only that, but maybe that article that came out, this very anonymous an ominous article about a fire sale in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm not going to put too much thought into the reports until we see something from one of the major sources. I don't think anything the Penguins do between now and the trade deadline would ultimately cause them to deviate from their whatever plan they have. I think they're still going to be more sellers than buyers in the end. I don't think they're not going to go out and get. Because let's be honest, even if they make the playoffs, the odds of them making a run in the cup are very minimal. There's still too many holes, I think, to make any kind of deep, significant run. So I don't think they're going to be out there giving up um, assets for a piece, especially a rental. Um, but I think that they could absolutely, even if they're on the bubble come beginning of March or whenever the trade deadline is exactly, if a deal comes for Pedersen, they move Pedersen. Um, Raquel, I said on I think our last episode, I'm very hesitant to make that move at all. Um, Letang would have to blow me away. Jari, I just don't know if that is doable in season with everything going on. Um, I think Carlson. I absolutely think you can move Carlson in season for a team that's desperate from anything from their defense. I absolutely think you can make that move and get a decent package. I don't know if they have anybody out there, but again,
Oh, Robbie, I got one for you. I
Barclay
think that
Goodrow, yeah,
I think there would be a taker on Erik Karlsson, and we can get to this rumor afterwards. But I was doing some number crunching, and I think former San Jose coach Pete DeBoer is in Dallas, and they could use a puck distributing right shot D-man. And guess what? They have a lot of good young players. So
they do,
we'll get to
they
that
do.
later. But you were saying something about Goudreau.
I mean, Barclay Goodrow fetched a first round pick a couple years ago. There's no reason that the Penguins don't have somebody on their roster they can't get. Again, that first round pick's not going to be a lottery pick, obviously, but there's no reason you can't, especially with a big name ticket like Carlson. Yeah, the defense isn't there, but he can still distribute the puck as well as anyone. Still has a wicked shot. It's still only 2 years removed from a 100-point season. So the talent is still there. He could absolutely fetch a first round pick. A team that's desperate for a guy like Marcus Pedersen, Edmonton, could absolutely again. Beggars can't be choosers when they want to compete for a Stanley Cup. So if they're desperate for these guys that have these skill sets, they're going to have to pony up. And if I'm in Kyle Dubas, I feel like I'm in a pretty strong position to extract the most value from these assets that I'm looking to deal.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I feel like we're on the same page with that. I don't think that that article seems like it's trying to really stir the pot, but we've kind of gotten to this point within the Penguins retooling that we kind of understand the Dubas's vision for this whole thing, and I don't see him straying from that anytime super soon. And like you said, I think if they did anything, they'd
Yeah,
be
yeah,
selling more than they'd be selling, not a fire sale. And definitely rentals are out of the question. And I don't think they're in the market for rental players or anything
no.
like that. But Robbie, what about actually this whole rumor might be a moot point. How long has DeBoer been the coach of the
Since Bowness stepped down, no, Bowness was uh New York or the Jets. DeBoer.
he
Is this his
actually
third season?
DeBoer was I'm trying to think. Where was DeBoer when it was the bubble team? Oh my God, he coached Vegas too. I forgot.
Yeah, he was
Jesus, maybe he
there.
never, maybe he never coached. God, was David Quinn the coach when was David Quinn the coach of the Sharks when?
No, Pete DeBoer coached the year that the Penguins beat them in the final.
God, has it been that long? Okay, here it
So
is.
he was there in 2016. Gallant Gallant was the original coach in um Vegas, and then he was fired, replaced by DeBoer. DeBoer was fired and replaced by Cassidy. Uh, and then DeBoer was in. I don't know exactly when he went to
Oh
Dallas.
man,
He may have replaced Bowness in
I
Dallas, actually.
I was out to lunch. Wait, when was Ken Hitchcock in Dallas? What era am I
Oh
living
man.
in right
Well,
now?
Hitchcock won a cup with Dallas in '99. He may have
And then
gone
it was
back though.
he with the Blues? God. Anyways, DeBoer was the coach of the San Jose Sharks in 2018. It looks like he maybe got a shot. So 2017, 2018, he was actually the franchise owner of the OHL's Oshawa Generals. And then it looks like he might have replaced somebody that season in San Jose. And actually, he probably replaced the dude who's the coach of the Red Wings now. Then 18-19 Sharks, 19-20 Sharks, and then he was the Golden Knights head coach until the end of 2022. So Dallas Stars since 2022, 2023. I have no idea what I'm thinking. That was a late night, just like, I wonder if that, I'm trying to connect some dots. So, but anyways, a team like Dallas, they might need a right shot puck distributing, because I think their best right shot player right now would be like Matt Dumba. Remember Matt Dumba?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, if that's the case, then yeah.
Yeah, they've got Miro Heiskanen, Esa Lindell, and Thomas Harley are all left shot defensemen, and then under them, their right shots are Matt Dumba, Ilya Labushkin, Niels Lundqvist,
Jeez.
and was Brendan Smith a part of the Penguins organization at one point? The guy who can
Maybe.
play he can play left wing, and he can
I
also,
don't think so.
anyways, he's a part of their program on the defensive end. So look out for that rumor. Maybe Carlson or Letang to the Dallas Stars at the deadline for
All right.
hopefully a decent little package. But either way, I'd probably still like to keep Carlson over Letang. That's just my biased opinion.
All right.
Robbie,
All right.
put it on record right now. If you had to keep one of them, who are you keeping?
Chris Letang.
Is it simply for the legacy?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. I think they got to the legacy. I think they did it. Their statues, they're all going to get statues in Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah.
But Carlson's like was at one point considered like a generational defensive talent, a defenseman, offensive defenseman talent. Anyways, we can move on.
All right.
I think that wraps up the mailbag, actually.
That does wrap up the mailbag, and that'll wrap up this episode as well. We will be back. We might as well just do another. We have some extra questions, so maybe another mailbag episode on Thursday or so, and then we'll figure out how to do recaps with the Penguins out west the rest of the week and into next week. So, Snell, do you got anything before we cap this?
No, Robbie, I think that's just about it from me. I guess we'll probably just do another mailbag and maybe recap a couple games then or something.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll talk and figure out what we want to do.
Sounds good to me.
All right, man.
Thanks for the questions, everybody.
Yep. Thank you guys for hopping back in on that. I know it's been a little while, but good to get back and get some interaction with our listeners. So that will do it for this one. The Penguins remain out west this week and into next week, finishing up this road trip. So for Snail, I'm Robbie. We'll talk to you guys later this week.